For whatever reason, a lot of people are attracted to dark stories of sadness or loss or tough decisions that ride the line between moral and immoral. That's why the top-rated movies and TV shows out there are picks like The Godfather or Breaking Bad. The same is actually true for video games, and this is why Majora's Mask, one of the darkest video games to ever be created, is so beloved by its fans, even to those who haven't played the game in the past quarter century it's been released. And truly, the amount of dark themes and characters and concepts that fill this particular adventure feels almost out of place in a game franchise that is otherwise known for keeping things generally pretty happy-go-lucky. Well, most of the time anyway. But no matter if you're a longtime fan of the game who's pondered its story over the years, or perhaps a newcomer to the franchise who's only just recently heard of the game, I'm here today to tell you that in retrospect, Majora's Mask, much like many other pieces of entertainment, is possibly even darker than you remember, and sometimes we don't realize it until much later. So walk with me for a bit as we reflect on some of the darkest themes within the land of Termina. Take the Ikana Canyon, for example. This area is already by far the most disturbing place in the entire game, and for many reasons. There's the fact that Ikana is completely littered with the undead, from long-dead spirits that haunt the sandy cliffsides to cursed, flesh-eating zombies known as Gibdos that roam the grounds and infest a secret labyrinth of rooms and hallways at the bottom of a mysterious well. There's also the hideout of Sakon, Termina's resident thief, located here, which also just so happens to be where the game's most bittersweet side quest, the marriage between Kathai and Anju, finds its completion. Then there's the most beloved dungeon in the entire game, the Stone Tower Temple, which is only accessible by using the haunting Elegy of Emptiness, which is a strange song that, when played in the area, summons and leaves behind empty humanoid husks known as the shells of the dead spirits of the Deku, Goron, and Zora individuals that Link can possess. The song infamously can also create a shell of Link, for some reason, who is still alive, but still leaves behind a soulless shell that wears an eerie smile on its face when the elegy is played, leading to decades of theories and even some infamous creepypastas being written about the statue, one of which is called Ben Drowned, which you may have heard of. But above all of the unsettling details found all over the place in Ikana, the darkest of them all is possibly what happens inside a strange building that's half phonograph, half house, known as the Music Box House. Inside this odd little home lives a father and his daughter, except only one of them is really living anymore. See, the father, who's nameless, is apparently a famed and otherwise well-known scientist who strives to research all things supernatural, but in this case has moved not only himself, but his entire home, daughter included, into the dangerous Ikana Canyon in order to research Gibdos and their undead nature. His daughter, whose name we do know, Pamela, lives with him but is frightened by the undead that haunt the area, as many kids would be, and would love nothing more than for the two of them to just move back to Clocktown, back to civilization. As a result of his years of research though, Pamela's father did at some point learn of a powerful circus-sounding song known as the Farewell to Gibdos, which when played has the power to return the wandering undead to the earth. And this is why the house that Pamela and her father live in doubles as a giant music player, in order to play the Farewell to Gibdos song as protection, powered by a water wheel. However, before Link entered Termina at the beginning of the game, two brothers that lived in Ikana, Sharp and Flat, who share both the names and appearances of Hyrule's Sharp and Flat, had a hand in halting the water that flowed beside the Music Box House, which in turn halted the water wheel that enabled the house to play the Farewell to Gibdos song. The reason was because Sharp had made a deal with the Skull Kid to revive the Ikana royal family from the dead, but was tricked instead, leading to the drying up of the water and likely he and his brother's demises. Fortunately though, Link can talk to Flat and learn the Song of Storms, which is ironically the same Song of Storms that Link can learn from the Windmill Hut in Hyrule, and play it for his brother Sharp, which will in turn snap him out of his cursed state of mind and will also restore the water flowing to the Music Box House, playing the song once again and eliminating the Gibdos from the area. After this, Link can wait until Pamela exits her house to check something at the nearby well and sneak into the house himself, where he will discover something sinister locked downstairs in a closet. As Link approaches the furniture, suddenly it will spring open and a half-Gibdo, half-man monstrosity will emerge, moaning and shuffling towards Link in an attempt to consume his flesh. At this point, Link can play the Song of Healing to soothe the still human heart inside the monster and seal its troubled spirit inside the Gibdo mask, restoring its humanity and returning it to the true identity of Pamela's father, the scientist. Apparently, the researcher had descended down into the nearby Cursed Well in order to study the many Gibdos infesting its maze of hallways, but ended up becoming cursed himself, leading to his own loss of mind and transformation into a Gibdo. After this, we're shown a touching reunion scene between father and daughter, where Pamela declines to explain what had happened to her father, and this is what I was getting at. There's something so intrinsically dark about a child having to lie to her parent about their very recent complete loss of mind. But it goes even darker than you might think. And the reason why is when you realize what had to happen for Pamela to lock her father in the closet. This only would have happened if Pamela's father were a threat to her. And being a Gibdo, this means that, more than likely, Pamela's father tried to eat his own daughter. It might have been over dinner one day, or it might have been while she was sleeping, but either way, I don't believe that's the sort of memory that you would ever truly come back from, and that is precisely why she spends the rest of the time after her father has returned to her, trying to convince him to go back to Clocktown and leave the dangerous canyon behind. Now, if that wasn't dark enough, we're not done with Ikana just yet. Before Link can even enter the canyon proper, he must first fulfill a strange request from the Poe Collector, who, once again, bears the same name and exact resemblance as his counterpart in Hyrule, although we once again have no reason to believe the two are or are not the same. The Poe Collector asks Link to obtain a mask from the black-hearted ranch dwellers, known as the Gorman Brothers, in order to pass by and enter Ikana Canyon. And ultimately, that mask ends up being something called the Garrow's Mask, which is said to house the dead souls of Ikana's deceased ninjas known as the Garrows, or perhaps Garo. Now, the mask itself is already unsettling, as is its history, but when Link wears it around the canyon, specifically in areas that Tattle can sense have a thirst for blood looming in the air, he can encounter the spirits of the Garo ninjas themselves. In life, they were spies from a rivaling kingdom sent to spy on Ikana Castle, and they apparently lost their lives in the struggle. And in death, they remain steadfast in their mission, ready to report to their master, who they mistake Link for when he wears the Garo's mask. After realizing that Link is not in fact their Garo master, they engage in combat with him, and if Link successfully defeats these ghostly assassins, they will each nobly offer up some advice before quite literally committing suicide by burning themselves in flame, leaving no corpse behind, which is the law of the Garo. As if that wasn't already dark enough, here's what makes this even darker. Realizing that the Garo are, as I previously mentioned, already dead. Pamela's father even confirms this as a part of his research and affirms the fact that they are merely composed of shells of emptiness wearing cloaks of darkness, ghosts cursed to linger on in Ikana. This means that the Garo, who are already living out their afterlife here, wandering the canyon in eternal undead servitude, are also being forced to experience their own suicides over and over and over again, for the rest of their eternal existence. Now, there's one more concept I'd like to talk about before wrapping the video, and for once it doesn't have anything to do with Ikana Canyon specifically, but instead, Link himself. Anyone who's played or at least heard of the game knows about the main mechanic involving Link's adventure through Termina. He has 3 days to figure out how to save everyone before the world is destroyed. The Skull Kid, having stolen the mysterious Majora's mask from the Happy Mask salesman before the events of the game begin, has taken his naturally prankful nature too far, and actually goads the moon into descending upon and crashing into the Tower of Clock Town, an impact which would destroy the world. In order to prevent this from happening, Link must adventure to each quadrant of Termina and free the 4 giants, who are the guardian deities of Termina as well as the old friends of the Skull Kid. Together, they're able to hold back the moon, at least long enough for Link to enter it and confront Majora itself. However, using the power of the mask, the Skull Kid had previously cursed each of the temples of the 4 giants, effectively preventing them from being able to come to the aid of the people of Termina, until Link is able to cleanse each of their temples, of course. However, solving the many problems in each of the 4 quadrants of Termina leading up to cleansing the temples in order to revitalize the giants is entirely impossible in merely 3 days. Fortunately though, Link was also given the Ocarina of Time instrument in this timeline before the events of Majora's Mask, and with it, the melody of the accompanying Song of Time, which when played on the Ocarina has the power to revert time to the beginning of the 3-day cycle, enables Link to resolve issues one by one until he successfully cleanses each of the temples and restores the giants. This is all common knowledge, but what makes this the darkest concept in the entire game and possibly the most tragic of the entire franchise is the fact that Link has to reset time over and over until he finally fixes everything. See, one interpretation of what the Song of Time does in Majora's Mask is like a rewind, as in everything simply rewinds and becomes undone. Certain details do seem to prove that this is the case, such as any quest that Link has solved reverting to not being solved, or Link's rupees being completely reset whenever he plays the song. However, the other interpretation is that each reset of time is actually not simply a rewind, but also the creation of a new timeline entirely. And there are also some reasons to believe that this is the case, possibly even more. For one, not everything resets when Link plays the Song of Time. His inventory largely remains the same, such as the masks he obtained, which implies that not everything resets, which logically means that it must be a new reality instead. And in the game that takes place immediately before this one, the game known as Ocarina of Time, we know that the one and only occasion the actual Ocarina of Time is used to reset time, it doesn't simply rewind it, it actually splits the timelines and simply places Link in the past in the new one. If this is still the case, which in my opinion does seem more likely, then that means that every time Link has to reset time in Majora's Mask, in reality, he's actually abandoning those timelines and entering new ones, just like what happened with Zelda at the end of Ocarina of Time. That means that every time Link reset the timeline, the moon crashed into Clocktown and killed everyone. Every single time. And whether or not Link had a choice, his playing the ocarina still sealed the fates of these people in every timeline he abandoned. Because of what he had to do to save the people in one timeline of Majora's Mask, the Hero of Time became the executioner of countless souls from countless timelines left behind. And that is why Majora's Mask is even darker than you remember. No matter how many times I replay the game, I always find myself uncovering something new. And most of the time, it's pretty depressing, but what about you? What's your favorite part of the game? And is there another dark concept I missed? Let me know all about it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already to stick around for much more gaming, story, and lore. Huge thanks as always to my bandit crew, of which we have a new name to announce. Say hello to Stylus, who just joined up on Patreon. Seriously, I cannot thank my supporters enough. You are the reason I keep making videos, and if you'd like your name in my videos, find out how in the description below. That's all I've got for this one, so as always, follow me on my socials, and I'll see you next time. This is Bandit, signing out. Peace!